Okay, Rachel.
Welcome, filing officers and liaisons. Thank you for joining us for the first of two filing officer information sessions offered before the April 1st, 2021 Form 700 annual filing deadline. Before we begin today's session, we'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's session is being recorded. Presentation slides and recording will be available online at sfethics.org within 48 hours. Attendee microphones will be automatically muted during the presentation. Attendee video is disabled during the entire session. During the Q&A segment, attendees who wish to ask a question should raise hand by selecting the hand icon and wait for the host to call your name and unmute your mic. For those who may not be familiar with the raise hand functionality in WebEx, rest assured additional instructions will be provided during the Q&A portion of today's session. Questions may also be submitted via email to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Questions submitted by email should receive a response within 3 business days. I will now turn it over to Pat Peterson, Engagement and Compliance Officer, who will lead today's session.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad that you are able to join us. Just a moment, please. I am having a bit of a technical difficulty. I will be back on screen in just a moment. And thank you so much for your patience. Let me confirm that you are able to see the PowerPoint presentation. Ronald, may I ask your assistance, please? Do you see the presentation now?
Your presentation is viewable, Pat.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. As Rachel mentioned, this is the first of 2 trainings that are offered for filing officers. You do not need to attend both. Again, today's session is being recorded. You will be able to watch it within a couple of days, about 48 hours. You can also attend the next live session, which will be March 10th. Let's get started. This is an agenda of today's events. We're going to talk about the Statement of Economic Interest, why it's filed, and how it supports transparency among city officers for the members of the public. We're going to talk about filing officer and filing liaison duties. These are your duties as you help people either obtain access to e-filing of their Form 700s or find where to pick up a paper Form 700 and how they return that information to you. If they're an e-filer, we'll talk about how to look up whether the filing is complete. For those of you who don't file a Form 700, we're going to go over a brief overview of what's in a Form 700. So if somebody asks you questions, you'll have some sense of what they're talking about. For those of you who work with board members, commissioners, department heads, and electeds, we're going to talk about some additional filing requirements for those individuals. And then lastly, we're going to go over some filer support and resources. Now, all of the information that we're talking about today is going to be in this slideshow. The slideshow has a lot of information on it, but when you open up the slideshow, which will be available on our website, it's going to have links to what we're talking about today. So don't feel that you have to take notes. The information will be on the screen and it'll be searchable in links on the presentation. Now, as we go forward, when you see an orange screen, it's going to have the agenda that we are going over in each segment, and the check mark will tell you where we are at in the presentation and give you a look back at where we were. So we're going to start with the overview of the Statement of Economic Interest, Form 700. So why is a Statement of Economic Interest, Form 700 filed, and how does it support transparency and accountability? Well, the Annual Statement of Economic Interest, Form 700, is required to be filed by public officials and designated employees throughout the state of California each spring. It's also required within 30 days of joining the city and within 30 days of leaving. We'll go over those deadlines later. Now, how does it support transparency? Well, it provides necessary information to the public about what the filing official's personal financial interests are. And that helps the filer remember that when they make a decision, it has to be in the best interest of the public and it can't enhance their personal financial interests. The second reason about why the Form 700 supports transparency and accountability is that it's that reminder to keep looking back, to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest. Now, when we talk about who files the Form 700, in the city and county of San Francisco, there are two groups. One group files electronically and one group files on paper. The group that files electronically are elected officials, department heads, board members, and commissioners. The people who help us reach these individuals are filing liaisons within the departments. We communicate with you to set up their e-filing account, make sure the dates that they're reporting are captured accurately, and then we provide filing instructions. The second group of people who filed the Form 700 file on paper. These are called designated employees, and these individuals are identified by each individual department as someone who makes decisions as part of their job that may affect their financial interests. This information is disclosed on a Form 700, collected on paper, maintained on records for 7 years. We'll go over that. Now we're going to talk about the Form 700 filing requirements and the due dates. Again, this is just an overview of the Form 700 that we're looking at. So right now, the bulk of today's session is going to be talking about getting everybody to the annual April 1st deadline, 2021. We're going to talk about how it's filed electronically on time, which is intuitive, and what we're going to do this year on paper, because wet signatures are required. Hint, they have to be mailed, they have to be postmarked. Let's go back to the Form 700. It's one form, and on it are 3 different ways to identify which form is being filed. An assuming office filing, whether on paper or electronic, has to be filed within 30 days of assuming office. And that is when you start work or you're sworn in to begin your service on a commission. The annual is due after you start every April 1st, and you report for the last year, kind of like taxes. The leaving office is filed within 30 days of leaving. When you think about these, without thinking about the dates, just think, did something happen within the last 30 days where I have to have the filer file? If you have any questions, call the Ethics Commission. We can help you understand the details. But bear in mind, there has to be a filing for when somebody joins, when somebody has been working for a full year, and when somebody leaves. There is an exception. Again, you don't have to remember this. We can help you understand it. But if someone assumes office in the last quarter of a year, they skip the next year's annual. And the reason for that is because the first filing is a 12-month look back. And filing again the following year would be pretty much redundant. So you skip that year. That is an exception. Again, we can help you with it. So let's talk about the two ways of filing. First, we're going to talk electronically. Again, this is for elected officials, department heads, board members, and commissioners. The way that this filing is completed is that it's done online with NetFile. We coordinate with the department to set up these filers' accounts. This is also where these filers, and it's the vast majority of them, also take their Sunshine and Ethics training. The next group of people who file are the designated employees who file on paper. The Form 700 can be completed on a PDF. The link in the lower right-hand corner will take you to the actual PDF that can be filled out, and it has to be submitted by the due date to the departmental filing officer. Now, the reason we don't specify the date here is because we understand from some of the departments that you actually ask your filers to get that paper filing to you earlier than April 1st. That's a smart thing. This year, for paper filers, no exceptions, a wet signature has to be received at your offices with a postmark of April 1st, 2021. Now, different departments handle things differently. You may want to ask individuals to send you a PDF, for example, so that you know that the filing was submitted. That is for an internal maintenance. You will need to be able to verify, though, that a wet signature was received with a postmark by April 1st. This is just a reminder that the ethics and training, ethics and sunshine training, which is required for people who e-file, most everybody who e-files, is also due April 1st, also due within 30 days of assuming office, and it's filed electronically on NetFile. It is not required for designated employees. We do receive questions saying, my department told me to take it. There are individuals who may have to take it. For example, Prop Q individuals who work on certain types of contracts. If that is the case, your department has already coordinated with SF Learning to make that learning available to you, but it's not available at the Ethics Commission. So give us a call if you have any questions about whether someone has to take it, and we'll be able to help you. Now then, a reminder about those paper forms. They have to be kept for 7 years, 2 years if they're kept in an electronic format. So the people who are filing on NetFile will maintain those Form 700s in case anybody has questions about them. For the ones on paper, they're kept at the department. This year, be sure to keep that postmark envelope along with your hard copy so that you can be able to explain when a Form 700 was received and be able to confirm that it was on time. For those who file the Sunshine and Ethics training forms, they will be available online. Let's see, for redacted copies, when you provide access to a member of the public of a form, if they look up an electronic form, it's going to be redacted. If they ask our office, the Ethics Commission, for a copy, it'll be unredacted. For those of you who are providing a paper Form 700 to somebody upon request, it should be unredacted. So before we go on, are there any questions about the general idea of the Form 700, the annual, the leaving, the assuming, and when they're due?
Pat, we do have a hand raised. Jenny.
Okay.
Jenny, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you can hear me. Hello, Jenny. You have been unmuted. Hello, Jenny. Did you have a question for Pat? Okay, Pat, looks, I'm going to go ahead and mute her back. Let's see, maybe she'll inquire later on during your presentation.
All right. Okay, now we're going on to our next segment on your filing officer duties.
Oh, Pat, I do apologize. Looks like we do have one more hand that's raised.
That's all right.
Mr. Mark, if you can hear me, I'm going to unmute you. Hello, Mark. Did you have a question for Pat? Okay. All right. Looks like we have one more, Pat. I do apologize.
That's all right.
Ms. Dia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi,
Hello.
how are you?
Hi, good. How are you? So I just
Fine
have a quick
arts, right?
question. Yes. So I just have one quick question. You had
Sure.
shared in this part of the presentation that we're required to have the paper filings for designated employees on file with our department for 7 years, if I'm correct in my
That's right.
understanding of that.
That's right.
What obligation do we have to hold on to ones for our department head and or our board? I know that they file electronically on their own, and so we don't personally get those files unless we choose to download them ourselves, but do we have a duty to keep those within the department?
You do not. The
Okay.
Ethics Commission and the NetFile system is the repository for their filings.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Ronald, are there any more questions?
Me?
All right. We'll go on to filing officer duties.
I'm sorry, Pat. Pat, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. We do have one more. Sonia, I'm going to unmute you.
Ms. Harris.
Sonia, are you there? Okay, Pat, looks.
Hello?
Hi, Sonia.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. So my question was regarding the request for the Form 700. You said if we receive a request for the Form 700 directly, it should be unredacted as well?
That
Or
is
was that,
correct.
oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Pat, I'm checking to see if there are any more. Please stand by. Hello, Jenny. I don't know if you can hear me. You have been unmuted. If you have a question for Pat. Okay, Pat, looks like that is it.
All right.
Unless Sonia, if you had another question, I do still see your hand raised. If you don't have any other questions, if you can unraise your hand, that would be great. All right, Pat.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to jump into the filing officer duties. Now, this information is available online. The link is in the lower right-hand corner of this screen, and it's going to take you to the filing officer duties page where we go through what you do to distribute the information, let the Ethics Commission know that you distributed it, collect the information, let us know who didn't file. All of those steps are online. We're going to go through them on the screen right now. First step. You have to let us know who you are so that we can get you the information about the filers and the filing obligations. So for those of you who may be familiar with this is a department contact information form. It is signed off on by the department head because under the law, the department head is the filing officer, the person who's actually responsible for making all the filings available and collecting them. So when they delegate that information, we want to know that they've done it. That's why they sign off on this form. If you don't know who is supposed to receive communications, or there's several of you, that easily happens in the larger departments as well as departments that share the responsibility, just send us an email to our main mailbox at ethics.commission@sfgov.org and we'll help you. If you want to know who files, for example, does your filer file electronically? Do they file on paper? Do they have to take the ethics and sunshine training? Do they have to file at all? That information is on the filing officer duties page. Links are on the presentation, and they're also on the link in the lower right-hand corner. Your next obligation, once we know who you are, and we've told you that we know who you are, is that it's time to roll out the information to your filers. You're going to want to notify people of the deadlines, the due dates, and how they file, whether it's electronic or on paper. You'll want to be able to tell your city officials, the people who file electronically, where the ethics and sunshine training declaration is. You can tell them it's online. You're going to have to provide compliance resources to your filers, and those links are on our website. Because if people have questions about whether or not a schedule is needed, whether or not they report a gift, how do they report a financial interest? That information is available on the Ethics Commission's website and at the FPPC. Start with the Ethics Commission. Well, we have a lot of information there for you, and it's one-stop shop. And then you can remind your paper filers, well, and your electronic filers, that we have upcoming sessions just for them. On March 10th, it's just for the people who e-file. As a reminder, they have additional requirements because of their positions. That filer session will be just for them. We'll have an attorney present. They can come with their questions. We'll answer best we can. On March 17th, it's a session just for people who file on paper. They have different requirements. They may work with grants. They may work, they may be traveling as part of work. They may be receiving a stipend as part of a presentation that they give because of their expertise. They have a different set of requirements. We'll be talking just to them, and we'll have an attorney present. We'll share with you later information about how to find the links for those sessions just for them. Your next step, after you get them the information, the deadlines, where to find, how to log in, where to find the form, your next step is to help your filers with questions regarding the filing requirements and the due dates. If they have additional questions, of course, you can send them to us. Please, the main mailbox, ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Then your big responsibility, make sure that the statements are filed on time. Keep those envelopes for the paper filers. Keep track electronically of your people who file on NetFile. It's available under the disclosures page on the Ethics Commission's website. New this year, like January 22nd, there is a requirement for people who manage and collect paper filings to make sure that they are submitted completely. Their name is there. The department is listed. They're filing for the right period. They dated and signed the form. Those requirements are coming out in a checklist. Brand new requirement. You're going to have to be able to document that you have done the compliance to check and make sure that the statements are correct. And then lastly, after you know that they're correct, you've gotten back in touch with people who have to make any amendments, collect and retain those completed forms for public access. All right, now we're going to go on to the annual filing. So we went over this for just a bit. We're going to need to know that you have notified everybody who has to file either electronically on paper. You have to let us know so that we can help you keep track of the filings that are due. That document is called a certification of delivery. It's filed electronically via DocuSign on our website, and it's due Wednesday, March 17th. We will bug you if we don't get it because we want to help keep things on track. We also need you to also help us by letting us know when your paper filers did not file a filing. And this is only, again, for designated filers. Now, this year it's due on Monday, April 12th. Usually it's due the day after the filing, or 10 days after the filing. But this year, 10 days falls on the weekend, so now it's due Monday, April 12th. This is going to be a little challenging because some of you may not be going into the office to look at those postmarks and those envelopes. So this is where you may want to consider asking people to send you a PDF. But you're going to, if you get that PDF, you're going to have to confirm at some point that you got the wet signature, and you still need to let us know. You still need to let us know by April 12th which of your paper filers did not file. That's really, really important. Contact us if you have questions about how to do this. I know the mechanics are hard. It's a weird year. Reach out to us. We'll help. So those are the annual duties. You're going to tell people what they have to do. You're going to help them do it. You're going to let us know whether or not they did it. Year round, this is also important. People have to file an assuming and leaving office Form 700. For people who file electronically, departments, you're going to have to let us know when somebody leaves or comes. Now, we also hear from the appointing authorities, which we are required to hear from them under the law. But what they don't know is when you have somebody in holdover status. Only you know that. You are feet on the ground. You see what's happening. We depend on you and we need your help. Because the penalties that are associated with a late filing, the filer gets hit with those no matter what. So let us know. Because if we don't know, we can't set up their filing, they can't file on time, and things snowball. For those of you that we've worked with, you know how much we need you, depend on you, and appreciate you. Filing officers for paper filers as well. We depend on all of you. So let us know when somebody leaves, when somebody comes. We'll make sure that the filings are submitted correctly and for the right reporting period. This is a reminder that those filings are due within 30 days, that you want to get instructions to the filers, and that you want to follow up in case the filing needs to be amended, that they left something blank, that they did something wrong. Late filings. There is no provision in the law to extend a Form 700 due date. There are reasons if someone is deployed in the military, if someone is medically unable to file, but those conditions are identified by the state and they're pretty narrow. So I didn't have a computer, I didn't have a copy machine, I didn't have a stamp. Those reasons aren't going to fly. When a filing is late, there's a late fee of $10 per day up to $100 for each filing. So for someone who has multiple positions, for example, on separate boards, that $100 applies to each filing. Now here's the biggie. This is a biggie. Non-filers, paper or electronic, may be subject to disciplinary and/or enforcement actions with potential fines of up to $5,000 per violation. This is not a filing to be trifled with. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We can help answer questions. Resources are available online. Let's talk about, in addition to those significant fines, let's talk about non-filer disqualification for people who are e-filers. These are people who sit on boards and commissions. Members of city boards and commissions who fail to file a required filing for the upcoming one, the Form 700 and the Ethics and Sunshine Training, if they don't file by April 1st, they cannot participate in any matter appearing on an agenda before their board or commission. No exceptions. They are disqualified. There's also a requirement for the filing officer or the board secretary to make an announcement publicly before a meeting starts that that member is disqualified. It needs to be in the minutes. And the guidance that we have received from the deputy city attorney is that you ask that non-filer to leave the room, because participation includes even listening to what the discussion is. This is not to be trifled with. If you have any questions, reach out to us, please. Now then, let's get on to how to amend a Form 700. Form 700, whether on paper or electronic, it can be amended anytime. There is no penalty. No penalty at all. Better to file accurately than wrong. Now, if you are amending something filed electronically, it's already going to guide you to the right form. Amendments on paper, we will help you get to the right form because, as you know, the laws change. You know, for example, the gift limit changes every 2 years. Each form is specific to a year. So you don't want to file an amendment to last year's filing using this year's form. It'll be wrong. And that is it. We're going to, before we move on to an overview of the Form 700, do we have any questions about the filing officer duties and the significance and the importance?
Pat, we do have a hand raised. And for those attendees, excuse me just 1 second, I do apologize. For those attendees who are joining us via telephone, I can tell that you are called in through a telephone. If you have any questions that you want to ask Pat, you will do so by raising your hand by using *3 on your telephone. If you need to ask a question, once again, towards Pat, press *3 to raise your hand. And if a question happens to be answered in the process, and if you want to unraise your hand, press *3 again. And this is for telephone use. Okay, so looks like we have Mr. Mark Morowitz. Hello, Mark. Mark, are you there? Did you have a question for Pat? Okay. Looks like that was the only hand raised, Pat. Okay.
All right. Okay, and now we're going to go on to the Form 700 overview. Again, if you don't file a Form 700, this is so that you get a sense of what people are being asked to submit. And then after this, we will have just the additional filing requirements for board members and commissioners, department heads, and electeds, and then we'll talk about the filer support and resources that are available. So some Form 700 general reminders, before we talk about what the form looks like. We want to know whether or not somebody has to file. So generally, for the annual coming up, that's due April 1st of 2021, they're reporting their disclosures held last calendar year. So January through December 31st, 2020. Now, how do you know what to file on the Form 700? Well, the link that's available in the filing officer duties is going to talk about what a disclosure category is whether or not a person's working title is listed as whether they have to file, and how much they have to file. In other words, their disclosure category, which talks about whether or not they have to report everything or just something of their financial holdings. Just a reminder that you may get this question: do they have to report their own interests as well as their spouse or partner and their dependent children? The answer is yes. That's immediate family. They have to be reported on the Form 700. It's just a general question. You may receive many of them, but that's one that we understand people receive a lot. So let's talk about those disclosure categories and whether somebody has to file. The answer is always going to be listed in the San Francisco Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code. That is a link that's available on the Filing Officer Duties page. And when you click on it, you search for your department. Here's an example of the ethics commissions. And it talks about the working job titles of people who have to file a Form 700. Now, this doesn't say whether it's electronic or on paper. That's in a different section of the law. You can rely on the fact, though, that if they're not a commissioner or a department head, they're going to be filing on paper. And if they're listed on this code, they're going to have to file the Form 700. If they are not listed on this Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, they are not required to file. Any questions, you can direct the filer to the Ethics Commission, or you can reach out to us. Now here's a slight tweak. This year's ordinance, it was updated recently, and it's not going to go into effect until the 21st of the month. Now then, if you have any questions, we understand that some department heads, for example, are no longer going to have to file the Ethics and Sunshine training declaration. But if they take the training before the 21st, it's due. After the 21st, it's not. If you have any questions, reach out to us. If you don't find your filer's working job title in the Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code, check with us. We'll help you understand when something is due. But if you see it in the code and it's online, they better get it done. So once you've found your department, you're going to find out, you'll want to understand what the disclosure category is. If it's anything less than a 1, it'll be in the description of your department. If it's 1 and you want to know what the heck's 1, everything else is listed except for 1, it's in a different section of the code. It's 3.1-107. The filing officers and the department heads are going to be the point of contact for questions. If you look at this and you're still not sure, reach out to us. We'll help guide you through it. Finally now, we're going to start with the Form 700. This applies to paper filers and electronic, because paper filers filing officers, you're going to have to be reviewing this page to make sure that everything's complete in here. Electronic filers, the information is going to be added automatically. So this is where we list contact information, who the filer works for, which Form 700 they're filing, which schedules they're filing. Now, this is a throwback to paper, but you check off on the cover page which forms are attached so that when the paper filing comes in, if it becomes unstapled, you'll know whether or not you're missing something. And then the last section, section 5, is where you're going to be looking for the wet signature and the date. Now again, paper filing, review the cover page for this information. Electronic filing, it's going to be added automatically. Oh, and a reminder, please don't put personal information on this form for contact information. You can use your office, you can use a business address, you can use your employer. If you're a board member or commissioner, just don't leave personal information on this form, because the public can ask for the form and you just don't want that information out there. There are a number of schedules that are associated with each Form 700. And there is a lot of information online about the definition of a stock or a bond or an other interest. What does ownership mean? What does an interest in real property mean? Hint, it doesn't mean your home. You don't have to list your home. But that kind of detail, it's in the Form 700. It's in the PDF. It's online. Don't over-report. People don't have a need to know whether or not what the interest rate is on your loan. You have to read the instructions to know that you don't have to provide that. People don't need to know your domicile, where you live, or your vacation home. Read the instructions. It's there, and it says, don't include that. There's information that defines income, types of loans, what a business position is that has to be reported, what kinds of gifts have to be reported, and what kinds of gifts of travel and advances and reimbursements for people who travel for work have to be reported. For gifts of travel, there are a number of different ways that it can be reported. It can be a gift to the agency. It can be a gift that is part of a service that you're providing as a speaker, or it can be a true gift, which you have to report. It's in the instructions, but if people have questions, reach out to us. It's better to get the filing right. Think about when filers ask you questions, the public is going to be interested in what a city official owns. They're going to be interested in their income, property that they hold, loans, gifts. It's reported, the instructions are online and in the form, and we can also help. Are there any questions about what's reported in a Form 700? Generally, what's reported and how to find an answer.
Pat, we have a question in the queue.
Okay.
Hello, Kathy. Do you have a question for Pat?
Yeah, it's actually not about what's reported in a Form 700. Should I wait to the end? I have about 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah, is this Kathy from HRC?
Nope, Kathy from the Rent Board. Hi, Pat.
Hi there. Sorry, can't see your faces. Okay. Yes,
Hello.
if you wouldn't mind waiting until the end.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that. I'll put my hand down. Thank you.
Okay, Pat, looks like we have no more questions at the moment.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going to talk about additional filing requirements for city officials. This applies to department heads, board members, commissioners, and electeds. There is something called behested payments reporting. This is reporting that is done by electeds and now recently as of last fall by department heads and members of city boards and commissions. Generally speaking, these are reports of payments that the elected official has requested, and they are for legislative, governmental, or oh my goodness, charitable contributions. Depending on who is doing the reporting and the dollar amount, they are reported on different forms. There is a great couple of pages on the Ethics Commission's website. We're going to talk just generally about how to think of something and when you have a trigger about having to go to the Ethics Commission site, because this information should be looked up every time you have a question. So we're just going to talk generally here. Per state law, there's a state form called an 803 for an agency who is asking for payments of $5,000 or more made at the official's behest. A copy of that document is filed with the Ethics Commission and the original is kept at the department. Elected officials, $5,000. Now then, those same individuals, as of last fall, are going to have a requirement to file a local filing. The limit is $1,000 or more, and it's only for certain types of contributions. And that's going to be an interested party, which is somebody who has either an enforcement action before the official, or they are asking for something like a permit or a license or something that will enable them to do something. Elected officials, state level, $5,000. File a copy with the Ethics Commission. The local guys, board members, commissioners, department heads, file the form. When you hit $1,000, either over the course of 12 months or all at once, you file it with the Ethics Commission. Members of boards and commissions and department heads, so they're going to file again at the $1,000 level. There's also going to be additional filing requirements. It's online, it's on a pull down menu from our information banner, and it also applies to the people who receive the donation and the people who make the donation. There are dollar limits that apply there as well. The donor is going to report when they make a donation of $10,000 or more to an entity at the request of an elected official, and the person who receiving it is going to have to report when they hit $100,000. You'll find online that there's information about the memorandum of understanding that the department has to enter into when donations are made to keep these things on track, so that the donor and the donee know when they have to file something. And the MOU is also going to indicate that the department has told the donor and in turn the donee of filings that have to be done. This is from last fall. The information's online. We'll help you comply. Just reach out to us. Separately from what we talked about earlier, where someone is disqualified because they haven't submitted a required filing. This is a board member commissioner. There's also a recusal notification. It requires a form that you file with the Ethics Commission, but any member of a city board or a commission who has a conflict of interest, as defined under the code available on our website, has to recuse themselves from a proceeding in the public meeting of the board or commission before the matter comes to the public. The person has to identify the circumstances, remove himself, and then leave the room. The recusal notification is a DocuSign form. It's online. It has to be done within 15 days of the date of the meeting, when the person had to remove themselves from the meeting. And the law and the form are available online. The other area that applies to board members and commissioners are gifts and conflict of interest rules. Their dollar limits, they change every 2 years. For the reporting for last year, the gift limit was $500. For any gifts received this year and the next, that limit goes up a whopping $20. For information, you can go to the Ethics Commission's website for the conflict of interest rules. You can direct filers to the city's Good Government Guide. It's great. It's in English. It explains things well. Has a wonderful table of contents. It's a wonderful resource. Also on our website, and it should be available on your departmental website as well, the statement of incompatible activities. It's going to speak generally about what is permitted for its employees. It may expand to whether or not there are employment restrictions, types of contracting, contact with certain contractors. It's department specific. If you have any questions, check your website. Check the Ethics Commission's website. It's under Statement of Incompatible Activities, and it's custom for each department. Are there any questions about the additional filing requirements for people who e-file? So electeds, department heads, board members and commissioners.
As a reminder to anyone who is calling in via telephone, if you would like to ask Pat a question, simply raise your hand by hitting *3. Okay, Pat, looks like we have a question from Miss Kathy.
Okay.
Hello, Kathy.
Hello, I always have questions. So, Pat, you said that some department heads don't need to file ethics and sunshine training, but you said they do if they take it before the 21st. I wasn't
Yes.
sure what that meant. The 21st of what?
Oh, February.
21st
So-
of February?
This actually only applies, and forgive me, I'm not looking at the participant list to see who's online, but this applies to one executive director, I believe in one of the quasi-state entities.
Oh, it's not us then. Okay. So everybody else has
and
to take it?
Right, and it also applies to board members and commissioners other than the successor agency to the successor entity to the redevelopment agency. They have, in the past, all of its members have taken the ethics and sunshine training, but as a quasi-state entity that used to be related to redevelopment law, they have now been removed from that section of the code that requires them to take the ethics and sunshine training. So that I
Okay.
think totals about, we're probably talking 13 people across the city.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to us. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Pat. It looks like we have no hands raised in the queue currently at this time.
All right, thank you. And we're on to our last topic, filer support and resources.
Do apologize, Pat. It looks like we had a last minute hand raised at the moment.
That's okay.
Hi, Pat.
Hello.
This is Aria again from the Fine Arts Museum.
Oh yeah, hi.
Hi, I had a quick question. I wanted to ask if you could give a couple of examples for the behested payments reporting requirement that you had discussed. It'd be helpful for me to understand a little bit better how that works.
Yes, and are you asking on behalf of trustees?
Trustees, and I think it now says that it applies to department heads as well.
Yes, it does.
Okay, yes.
So if these individuals have asked an entity to make a behested donation for a legislative, charitable, or governmental reason, and the person making that contribution is an interested party, as defined on our website and in the law, as someone who has a matter pending before the person who's asking for the money, that is an enforcement action or something where they're asking for something. Now, forgive me, I'm not that familiar with what the fine arts might issue, but it would have to be something like a permit or a license or something that would give somebody permission to do something,
Okay.
like hold an event. There are dollar limits for those types of contributions, and depending on how the ask is made, it may or may not have to be reported. For example, if there's a big ask, like there's a crowd, 200 people, or there's a communication that goes out over the airwaves, or there's a mailing of, I'd have to check the website, several hundred documents that all go to the same individual, that's not something that has to be reported. But if the filer is in a group of fewer than a couple hundred people and says, hey, everybody donate money to this entity because they do great work, when it hits $1,000, it's reported. So those are the types of constraints where something would be reported. The details and the law is on our website. has to be adhered to. There are very strict definitions of what is an interested party, when a report has to be filed, when a dollar threshold is met, maintaining those records so that it can be explained and defended. That information's online. I don't want to make light of this. It's driven by the law. Check our website if you have questions. Reach out to us.
Perfect. Thank you, Pat.
Hi, Pat. Actually, this is Rachel. If you don't mind, if I can just piggyback on your answer. Real
Oh, I was
quick.
hoping you would.
Okay, good. I'm glad. Hi, Priya. Rachel Gage. I'm the Engagement and Compliance Manager with the Ethics Commission. I do want to let you know there is a comprehensive fact sheet that we have online on the Behest at Payments page that does a good job of summarizing the laws. For department heads specifically, they also have to be aware of contracts. So if they're approving a contract, if they have any participation in a contract, whether it be the negotiations or they're involved in, I don't know, even kind of scoring a contract or something to that effect, that would also be considered, a potential conflict of interest. So they would have to disclose, anybody coming before them, if they behest a payment from that individual would also be considered an interested party. And the laws began applying to department heads effective September of last
24?
year.
Yeah.
And this was by way of the mayoral directive, and that's also available on our website. So feel free to take a look at that. I think it does a really good job of kind of summarizing the laws and what applies to whom.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Sure.
Okay, Pat, it looks like we don't have any other questions currently in the queue.
Okay. So this screen for filer information sessions is just a reminder of upcoming sessions for people who have to file the Form 700. The session on February 17th, session FI, filer information 1, is for people who file electronically. Elected officials, department heads, board members, and commissioners. Those are the ones with the additional duties, recusals, behested payments. The attorney will be there to answer questions. The next session, a month later, Wednesday, March 17, filer information session 2 is for people who file the paper Form 700 in hard copy. The information is going to be available for signing up for those shortly before each session so that they don't get confused and sign up for the wrong session. And it'll be on the Form 700 filing support page. That link will be live on this presentation when you get a copy of it. So if your filers say, how do I do this stuff? You can tell them sessions are coming up, go. Attorney will be there. For support and resources, man, we are here to help. You need to help your filers file and help them find information, and we'll help you and them with that information. There's information that's on our website. You can write to us at our main mailbox, ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Put your question in writing, and we'll get an answer to you. Information is available on the Fair Political Practices Commission's website. They're the ones who own the form. If you want an answer or a guide or a reference material or a past form to complete, it's there. We can also help you find it. And lastly, those resources are available online. If you're going to call the Fair Political Practices Commission while sheltering in place, they may direct you to their email and ask you to submit it in writing. They are adjusting to sheltering in place, as we all are. This is just a quick look at our website. It's on the compliance page under city officers, and there you will find information about how to get access to a form, information about the ethics training, the SCI resources. That little section is always expanding as we add more forms, more guides, more fact sheets. That's a good place to look in the lower left-hand corner. And then lastly, the information sessions. Click on that, and that'll take you to any of the upcoming sessions that we have. The next filing officer information session, March 10th, or the 2 filer information sessions that we just talked about on in February and March on the 17th of each month. Now then, do we have any questions about the entire session? We'll ask that you raise a hand to let Ronald know that you have a question. Wait for him to call your name. And when you do, you'll see that your hand is raised and Ronald will let you know when you can ask your question so that I can hear you. And be sure to lower your hand when you're finished.
Thanks, Pat. Looks like we do have a question. Kathy, I'm going to. Hello, Kathy.
Hi there. It's Kathy again at the rent board. I've got
That's okay.
I got two quick questions. So for the filer information session, so they just have to keep checking back at the website, or will you guys be emailing us the link and we can send it to them?
You know, we're going to email you the link because we don't know who they are.
Okay.
Your paper filers, we don't know who they are.
Okay,
But if they
perfect.
do keep checking the website because they can't wait to attend. The information will be, the links will be available there too.
Okay, wonderful. And then speaking of paper filers, this is my last question. I've been holding on to it since last year. So at the last year's information session, my understanding was for paper filers that we were supposed to keep an updated address list with you guys. And so we hadn't done that for a while. So I sent you guys a list of all our paper filers. And then I got an email back saying you weren't supposed to send this to us. It should have went to the city attorney and the board of supervisors.
Yep.
We'll forward it for you. So I was really confused by that. So every time we hire someone who's going to be a paper filer, we need to update the city attorney and the board of soups, but not you guys. I'm confused about that.
And it is confusing because there's so many people to keep in contact with about someone who's onboarded. And you think, well, who do I let know what? For purposes of the Form 700, the department needs to let the city attorney know, and it's every 2 years, but as you go along is also good. Let the city attorney know when you have a working job title that should be filing a Form 700. If the person's already listed in the Campaign and Governmental Conduct Code as a filer, you don't need to add them.
So,
So the name of the individual, you don't need to let us know when they join.
I thought that you had said that every time we get a new person, we need to update that list. So as long as it says administrative law judge for us in the admin code, then you don't need to know everybody's specific name every time we get a new one, only if we add a new category. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Now, here's the thing. Now, because I can just feel the wheels turning in people's heads. It's like, well, when do I let you know something? Here's what we really need to know. When someone is supposed to file a paper Form 700 and they don't, you have to let us know. This year, you're going to do that on April 12th.
We have to file that every year.
Yeah, and
that's one of our
where we want name and address because we need to know.
Right. Other than that, you don't care who they are. We just have to maintain their forms, let you know that they filed them every year. But we don't need to update the addresses with you.
Right.
I mean,
now remind me, you're talking only about paper filers, right?
Yes, Only
Okay.
paper.
Yes, because if you were asking about people who e-file, no, you have to coordinate with us because we have to actually set up the account.
Right,
But for,
got
pa-
that.
yeah,
Uh-huh. But paper filers, no.
Right.
Okay, perfect. That's good information to know. Okay, that was it. Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you, Kathy.
yeah. So we are running over.
Looks like, Pat, looks like we don't have any other questions currently in the queue.
Okay,
Oh, we do have another question.
okay.
Hello, caller. Do you have a question for Pat? Hello, caller. Do you have a question for Pat? Okay, it looks like they raised their hand. No response. Okay, Pat.
Thank
No
you,
other calls in
everybody,
the
for
queue.
attending. I hope this was easier to attend because it wasn't in person, but I do miss seeing you all. But tell people to attend the filer information sessions, encourage other people to come to the filing officer sessions so that we can refresh their memory or tell them all the new stuff they need to know. Thank you for coming, and let us know if you have questions. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.